You know, one of the magical things about television is that although we had an intermission here at the Monona Terrace Convention Center, we seamlessly transition in mere seconds to our fifth fight of the night. Rene Mora Jr. is making his way to the cage right now in fight number 5. We are going to have not one, not two, but 3 title fights coming up a little bit later on, including Alex Gilpin defending his title against the natural Nick Compton. And so we are definitely looking forward to that as we charge ahead here at the exhibition ball right on the shores of Lake Monona, the Monona Terrace Convention Center, and the Carbon World Health tail of the tape. As Rene Mora Jr. getting checked out, we will check out Marcos Gonzalez next. Take a look at Marcos Gonzalez, who is starting to move his way up the cards here in the Chosen Few Fighting Championships. And so we saw Marcos the last time, and it is our 3rd Chosen Few fighter of the night after we saw the successful debut of James Mayhew a couple of fights ago. Now it's Gonzalez's turn to head up to the cage and square off against Rene Mora Jr. We will take one final look at the tail of the tape, and we will head up to the cage with Chris Garrity.
Ladies and gentlemen, our 5th bout of the evening is an amateur featherweight contest scheduled for 3 rounds. Introducing first, this man fighting out of the Coliseum Bar, red corner. He is undefeated, 2 bouts, 2 victories, 1 knockout. He hails from Two Rivers, Wisconsin, and represents Highland Fight Systems and Veneration Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He stands in at 5'6" tall. He weighed in at 147.2 pounds. Rene Mora Jr. His opponent, this man, fighting out of the Harley-Davidson of Madison, blue corner. He stands in at 5'7" tall. He weighed in at 144.6 ready pounds. Also undefeated, 3 bouts, 3 victories, 1 knockout. Representing the Chosen Few and hailing from Madison, Wisconsin by way of Baja, Mexico, Marcos Gonzalez.
Rich Reynolds cage side along with Chris Garrity, and Gerald Mearshart is here as well. GM3 as we are getting set to call our 5th fight of the night. Rene Mora Jr. and Marcos Gonzalez. And let's see Marcos go at it now representing the Chosen Few. And as we have been watching the career of Marcos Gonzalez, he has been moving up the card a little bit, Chris, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he looks better and better every time we see him. But I'll tell you what, he's fighting a guy right now that has just as much experience and is going to be the toughest fight that Marcos has. And right now he's in a lot of trouble, Rich.
On his back early, as on top and gaining control is Mora, and now leveling in some right hands, that is, into the side of the face of Gonzalez. And Gonzalez right now trying to get out of this predicament that he is in near the center of the cage.
We saw Rene come out early with that underhook, secure the takedown, and then Gonzalez tried to reverse it with a wizard rollover, and now he finally gets that reversal he's been looking for. He's going to look to push him up against the cage, establish some pressure, and get some ground and pound in. But Rene, no slouch on the ground, getting a headlock and reversing position again, back into that mount.
So both guys have been on top for a while, but right now it's Mora getting the better of Gonzalez. As one thing we have seen from Gonzalez, too, as he fights a little bit more here in the Chosen Few, the crowd is starting to get more and more behind him as they get more familiar with him.
And great job from Gonzalez using the cage to get out of trouble, and he just did it again to get on top of Mora.
And much to the delight here of this sold-out crowd here at the Monona Terrace Convention Center, Gonzalez now with the top controller, the front face guard actually now bringing down and flipping over Mora as the action continues now right in front of us.
Featherweight, bantamweight, flyweight, my 3 favorite weight classes in the sport. because you get such equal matches. These guys have so much energy and are so technically sound at these weight classes. These are my favorite fights to watch.
Yep, as a general rule of thumb, as you go down in weight class, the technique has to go higher. Smaller bodies, you just got to move more. The technique's got to be more precise. And as you see, a lot more scrambling, a lot more gas in the tank for these smaller fighters, always putting on the shows. We see Rene securing the mount once again, looking to solidify his round here.
And going for the armbar right here is Rene. And it looks like he might have it, Gerald. Oh, no, he's starting to slide it out.
Yeah, he wanted to be perpendicular to Gonzalez, couldn't quite get the angle, and now Gonzalez trying to come out on top. He's got to push that leg down, posture his head up a little bit. Rene's still got his wrist, but he's not in any real danger, and now he pops out.
And now Gonzalez able to get some good hammer shots into the back of Mora here in the final 10 seconds of round number 1. Nice even round here, and maybe tough to call, as perhaps Mora had the edge in that one. We'll talk about that when we get back and head to round number 2 here in the Chosen 2 Fighting Championships number 11 on Wisconsin's 57 Sports. All right, as we check out the action from round number 1, as we saw both fighters be able to dish out some punishment in round number 1. What did you guys see?
Well, I think it came down to a grappling match in round 1, and it seemed that Rene had a little more time on top. Mora really came back at the end there trying to get some hard shots in, but overall I think Rene would have secured that first round.
That's going to be a tough fight to score so far, Rich. I agree with Gerald that Rene did have more top control, but then I'm going to give the striking angle to Marcos, so it's really going to be interesting to see how the judges score this, because Marcos was able to do more damage while he was striking, but if you go to ring control, Mora had more of it. So it'll be interesting. This could be one of those fights where we see the judges disagree on round 1.
Yeah, you see what the judges actually value then in their judging of a fight. And so right now, both guys starting up on their feet. We see some good striking, overhand right there by Gonzalez. Gonzalez trying once again to dish out some punishment by striking.
Now, one thing I definitely don't like in fights like this are those spinning back kicks that are wild, not protecting your head, not landing very clean. That's just going to put yourself in a lot of trouble, especially against a good striker. Now, Rene is ending up in a decent position here, but you got to refrain from that if you're not an expert in it, in my opinion.
It's definitely a right and a wrong way to do that. Generally, you want your opponent backing away from you, creating distance for you, and you have to turn your head before your body so you can land your strike effectively. And as you said, guys try to whip that spinning moves out there, back fist, back kick, whatever it is. They can very easily give up their back, and now we see Gonzalez with the big double leg coming up on top.
Good stuff there from Chris and GM3, and that's why you're watching the action here in 57. If you can't make it to these fights, then the next best thing is to watch the action, and you get good stuff like that. Good analysis there from Marcos and GM3.
And Marcos had Mora's back, was looking to sink in the rear naked. Mora stayed calm and was able to easily twist around and get into basically a guard position at this point. But, I mean, you can't let a guy do that when you've got your back mounted. You've got to at least hook in, what do you think, Gerald? At least a body triangle or something to keep him where he is.
I think he got a little excited. He didn't have the legs in. He had double underhooks. His hands were wrapped around his chest. I think he saw the opportunity, got a little bit high with his weight, and then when they rocked back, he wasn't ready to secure his hooks, and that let Rene circle, as you said, and come up on top. And now we see him here. Gonzalez trying to land some strikes off his back, staying active, but ultimately Rene technically in the dominant position right now.
It's amazing how things can turn so quickly in these fights. You seem to have the advantage. You make one little mistake, you leave one little opening, and a guy can turn it around, and that's what Mora's been able to do here. We're in the second round, scheduled for 3 right now. Again, Mora having the advantage here in the second round, spending more time on top of Gonzalez, and now is using the side of the cage for leverage here to gain on top of Gonzalez.
Looking to get into side control here. I don't know, does he have that leg in half guard yet?
Looks like he's in half guard. Gonzalez trying to go for a guillotine. Yeah, had to let it go. Can't quite get it from that angle. Rene keeps looking to pass. Gonzalez doing a good job staying active, trying to land strikes off his back. And now here we have the end of the round.
And the final few seconds of round number 2 tick away. We are going the distance in this one, round number 3. Coming up next here on 57 Sports. Pretty even fight so far here between Gonzalez and Mora Jr. as we are heading on to round number 3. As you see the very attractive ring girl tell us that, and you also see some action from round number 2.
And good strikes from Marcos. I like him throwing the kick and following it up with a punch right after that. And then he had a nice dominant position there. We were just in where he had Mora's back, and then that's where Gerald had described how Mora did a great job turning into guard at that point, which was a big mistake from Gonzalez.
So what do we
Could have
look
cost him the
for?
round.
Yeah, fellas, what do we look for here in round number 3?
It's been a really close fight so far. I think Gonzalez has a lot more success on his feet. I think he tries to stay up on his feet, land those good leg kicks that he's been landing. I think Rene's been doing a little bit better on top, but when he does get on top, he needs to land strikes and advance his position to secure this win.
Chris, do you think Gonzalez needs a stoppage?
You know, it's all going to depend on how they rate round number 1. And the way judges usually judge in this state and in the unified rules around the country, they love top control, they love takedowns. So if I was a betting man, I would say Mora is up on the cards, 2 rounds to none. So yes, I would say Gonzalez is going to need a stoppage.
We will see how this plays out in round number 3 as now Gonzalez getting pushed back into the side of the cage. We have seen in other fights here that sometimes the fighters will use the screen behind us to take a look at the time that is left in the round and use that to see how hard they got to go to get that stoppage.
Great job from Mora here getting the side control, Gerald.
Yeah, you know, Gonzalez was doing really good with that wizard toss, really good on his defensive wrestling, but Rene doing a good job off those reversals, making sure he secures top position. And as we see now, inside control, working to land some strikes, possibly working for a key lock or a Kimura as he works for that arm.
Mora again on top here in round number 3. Gonzalez on his back and looking to get to his feet where he seems to have had the most success so far in this fight.
I think Mora is going to be more of the gassed fighter at this point. You could tell he was a little flat-footed, mouth open, breathing hard. Marcos is the fresher fighter. You could see it right there. He was able to reverse him when he was in side control. So great job from Marcos. And so we'll see how Mora handles the end of this round. But like you had discussed, he's bleeding now from his nose too, Rich.
Got the reversal and now is back on his feet looking for a combination of kicks and strikes, but instead it is Mora Jr. who's able to back Gonzalez back into the wall.
Now we see Gonzalez here. It looks like he's dropping for a guillotine. I don't think he's quite got it from this angle. He might have it pretty tight now. We'll see if Rene can get his head out.
Gonzalez holding on here as kind of shielded off there, and now it looks like he might have that in there pretty good.
Oh, and he pops out.
Lost it as Mora's able to get his head out of there and goes into top control again on Gonzalez.
Yeah, Rene doing a good job staying on top through everything. Gonzalez really likes those reversals. It seems like he favors the overhooks and trying to throw his opponents, but when you do that, you got to make sure you circle back to the back, secure that top. Now we see him here again trying to roll out of a position.
And the action now happening right in front of us is the final few seconds here of the fight are happening, and that is going to do it. We'll see how the judges score this one. Pretty even matchup, but it could be Mora's fight. We will go to the cards and get the decision from Chris Garrity next here in the Chosen Few on Wisconsin's 57 Sports. All right, this one goes the distance between Rene Mora Jr. and Marcos Gonzalez. And even though Mora looks like he sustained more damage in the way of blood, he might come out on top in this fight, Gerald, as he spent a lot of time on top of Marcos Gonzalez.
Yeah, you know, a lot of this fight was a grappling match, and he was on top a little bit more, but again, a very close fight. Gonzalez doing a little bit better on the feet. Very interesting to see how the judges call this one.
So we will see. We had a split decision back in our first fight between Nelson and Velez. The other decision that we had was 2 fights ago when Jay Feustel was able to get a unanimous decision over Benigno Barrera. Now we take a look at Gonzalez. A unanimous decision is what we think we have coming up. So we will get the official word here from Chris Garrity, who's gotten a little bit of a smirk on his face, the microphone in hand, and let's see how the judges scored what appeared to be a pretty even fight.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time before we go to the scorecards, a big round of applause for another great back and forth fight. And after 3 rounds of featherweight action, we go to the judges' scorecards. All 3 judges have scored this bout the same, 29-28 in favor of your winner by unanimous decision. And fighting out of the blue corner,
And maybe I'm kind of surprised that Rene Mora Jr. took that decision so well as he heard the decision being made. He was nodding his head up and down, and he seems to be all right with it. Kind of surprising. Do you think, Gerald, that Marcos Gonzalez comes away the winner?
You know, it was a close fight. I think while he was in there, he felt the damage that was done, and, you know, if he doesn't have a problem with it, and partly, definitely good sportsmanship. A fight's a fight. Neither guy finished it, and whoever the judges chooses, that's who you got to go with.
His record stays unblemished as he continues to move his way up the card at the Chosen Few Fighting Championships. We got another fight up next. We move up in weight class to 170 pounds. Thompson, Jossert, next on 57 Sports.